In this true crime documentary, we dive into the chilling disappearance of 25-year-old mother, Jessica Heringer, a case that left an entire community shaken and desperate for answers. My name is Shelley, and I'm here to share the story of my daughter Jessica, who vanished without a trace from Norton Shores, Michigan on April 26, 2013. Jessica wasn't just another face in the crowd. She was deeply loving, the kind of person who would go out of her way to help anyone in need. She was also a devoted single mother, raising a 3-year-old boy, a child who depended on her every single day. And yet, in a single night, she was ripped away from us. Jess, if by some miracle you can hear this, I want you to know how much I love you. Hold on to faith, stay strong, because we will never stop searching. We will never stop fighting to bring you home. On April 26, 2013, Jessica Heringer arrived at the Exxon gas station for her evening shift at exactly 4:35 p.m. To her, it was supposed to be just another ordinary night behind the counter. But that night would become anything but ordinary. Her loved ones seemed to sense it before anything even happened. Her boyfriend stopped by, just to see her face, as if some part of him felt uneasy about leaving her there alone. Not long after, one of her close friends also showed up, carrying that same quiet worry. They both hated the thought of Jessica working these late hours without anyone else around. And their fear wasn't unfounded, because the gas station itself was a trap. No security cameras, no surveillance, nothing to capture what might come. Just Jessica, a young mother working alone in a building swallowed by shadows. By 11 p.m., a man pulled up to the pump like any other customer. But the second he stepped out of his vehicle, something felt wrong. The station was eerily silent. No cashiers at the counter, no voice greeting him from inside. He lingered, confused, then slowly walked the perimeter of the building. Each step made the silence heavier, more suffocating. That sinking feeling in his chest deepened when he finally peered inside. The register was empty. Jessica was gone. Her car was still there. Another car sat out front. But Jessica herself had vanished. I had walked inside. There's nobody. There's a car here. There's another car out front. But it just feels very suspicious why there's nobody here, he recalled. Did you yell? Or? Yeah. I walked around the building. I don't know. Something was wrong. Officers arrived at the Exxon station within minutes of the alert, their flashlights cutting through the stillness of the night. It didn't take long before unease began to settle in. A woman's jacket was draped carelessly on a chair, as if someone had left in a hurry. Her purse, stuffed with nearly $400, sat zipped shut on the counter. Next to it, a fresh pack of cigarettes remained untouched. Nothing about this scene looked voluntary. These weren't the belongings of someone who walked away. These were the frozen fragments of a life suddenly interrupted. Investigators quickly pulled the last transaction from the register. At exactly 10:55 p.m., a customer had paid for a cigarette lighter. Just 5 minutes later, another call came in. Someone reporting that the station was completely deserted. Within that narrow window, something had gone terribly, irreversibly wrong. When one of the officers stepped outside, the weight of the moment grew even heavier. Scattered across the pavement were faint specks of red, a chilling sign that violence had erupted in silence. Nearby, a battery cover, likely from a laser sight, lay abandoned, raising the possibility of a weapon being involved. As they processed the evidence, another unsettling detail emerged. The door leading toward the bloodstain had no handle on the outside. It could only be opened from within, as though whatever happened had been sealed off from the outside world. At first glance, It could have been dismissed as a robbery gone wrong, but the money was untouched. Jessica's purse was still full. The register had not been forced open. There was no evidence of theft, no sign of desperation for cash. Whatever unfolded inside this station was not about money. It was about her. And with a few more pieces of evidence, officers were forced to face the most terrifying realization of all. The worker missing that night was 25-year-old Jessica Heringer. Jessica Heringer was just 25 years old when she vanished without a trace, leaving behind only scraps of evidence. No witnesses, no surveillance, just a gas station that sat in silence, holding its secrets like a grave. Investigators, desperate to break that silence, began knocking on doors, asking neighbors if they had seen or heard anything unusual. But the neighborhood gave them nothing. At least, not at first. What they didn't realize was that their questions would ripple outward, carrying Jessica's disappearance beyond the station walls. And when it reached the Idle Mui, she came forward with a story that instantly chilled investigators. Around the time Jessica was last seen, she had been riding past the gas station on her motorcycle. Something unusual caught her attention. A silver van circling behind the station. At first, she admitted her mind went to something petty, even harmless, like Jessica sneaking merchandise out the back. But as she slowed her bike, she saw something far more disturbing. The van's hatch was wide open. A man was standing there, adjusting something or someone before slamming it shut. Then, he opened it again, only to close it once more, like he was struggling to secure whatever he had inside. The manager never saw Jessica, never heard a scream. But the way the van pulled off moments later sent a shiver down her spine. Behind the wheel was a man in a red, maybe orange sweatshirt with wild, unkempt hair. He never looked away, never hesitated, just drove into the night as if he had finished exactly what he came for. At first, she stayed silent, convincing herself it was nothing. But with Jessica gone, that silence felt unbearable. Her testimony gave investigators their first real lead. Jessica had likely been taken by a man driving a silver minivan. They turned to the surrounding surveillance footage, desperate for something the gas station itself could not give them. And for the first time, luck seemed to be on their side. One nearby camera caught sight of a Chrysler Town and country minivan drifting through the area around the time Jessica disappeared. It flickered in and out of frame like a shadow, fleeting but undeniable. Based on the manager's description, this was the vehicle they were looking for. But then came the crushing reality. In the state of Michigan alone, over 15,000 of those vans were registered. At least 5,000 of them were silver. Finding one specific vehicle in a sea of identical machines was like chasing a ghost. The spark of hope investigators felt began to dim. And yet, they knew, buried somewhere in that endless crowd of vans, was the one that carried Jessica away. They kept canvassing the area, desperate for any overlooked clue that might finally break the silence. And then, something surfaced. A woman came forward with a detail detectives never saw coming. She explained that just a day before Jessica vanished, she had stopped at the station and struck up a casual conversation with her. The topic quickly turned to how unsafe it felt, working those late-night hours all alone. Jessica admitted she hated the isolation, the emptiness of the place after dark. But before either of them could finish the thought, a man nearby cut in. He told the woman not to worry, that Jessica wasn't really alone, that her customers would always protect her. But the way he said it wasn't protective at all. It was strange, unsettling. The mood shifted instantly, and both women fell silent. Unlike the station manager, who had only caught a glimpse of suspicious movement. This woman had locked eyes with the man. She remembered his clothes. She remembered his hair. She remembered the unsettling tone that made her stomach twist. And she remembered it well enough to help. With her description, investigators were finally able to create a composite sketch. Copies were handed out to every search team in the area, stapled to poles, pinned to walls. The net was tightening. Search parties still scoured the streets for Jessica, but now, they weren't only looking for her, they were also hunting the man who had claimed she wasn't really alone that night. Days bled into weeks, but the haunting question remained. Was Jessica still out there waiting to be found? Or had this mysterious man already ensured that no one ever would? Weeks bled into months. Jessica was still nowhere to be found, and the man they were hunting, he had disappeared too. The case that once had an entire community on edge slowly slipped into silence. Leads went cold. Witnesses faded. Headlines moved on. By the end of the year, her investigation was labeled inactive, a file collecting dust, marked only by the haunting photograph of a young woman who had simply vanished. "Where is your emergency?" a dispatcher asked months later. "We came up to this lady. She's laying in the road. I think she was hit by a car. She's got a head injury," a frantic voice replied. It was the summer of 2014, just 20 minutes away from Norton Shores, the last place Jessica had been seen alive. A woman named Rebecca Bletch was discovered sprawled across a quiet road, her body twisted, her breaths shallow. Neighbors assumed a car had struck her. It looked like a tragic accident. But when investigators arrived, what they found told a far darker story. Police revealed that Rebecca had been shot 3 times in the back of the head. Her body bore bruises along her wrists, her hands, her back, her leg, marks that no one could explain. At 6 o'clock that evening, she was still clinging to life when neighbors found her, but the damage was irreversible. She died moments later. Nearby investigators collected 3 shell casings from a .22 caliber weapon, grim evidence of an execution-style attack. Rebecca hadn't been hit by a car. She had been hunted. At first, the working theory was that maybe it was random, an unlucky woman in the wrong place at the wrong time. But the bruises, the precision of the shots, the strange scene, it all pointed to something far more calculated. And what no one could ignore was this. Rebecca's death had unfolded just miles from where Jessica disappeared. The darkness hadn't ended. It had only spread closer. 2 women, 2 attacks, both in small towns not far from Norton Shores. One had vanished without a trace. The other had been left to die on a lonely road. Could this really be coincidence? Or was someone out there watching, choosing, planning? Just like Jessica's case, there were no witnesses, no cameras, no answers. 3 years had passed since Jessica disappeared from that gas station, and 2 years since Rebecca's lifeless body was discovered on that quiet stretch of asphalt. But in April of 2016, something happened that would finally crack everything wide open. Okay, we're going to get out there. Stay in line with me. Who has a gun? Stop, stop, stop. Is it sticking out? Who was it? I don't even know him. The officer's right around the corner. Anybody about 40 years old? What do you think? Dark hair. Music. That same month, a 16-year-old girl was walking home from a party late one night. She had taken a wrong turn, wandered down unfamiliar streets, no phone in her pocket, no one around. Then, a silver minivan slowed to a stop beside her. The driver leaned over, asking if she needed help. She refused a ride, but asked if she could borrow his phone to call someone she trusted. He agreed. She stepped inside, and the moment she did, the trap snapped shut. He slammed the van into gear, flooring it into the darkness. Her heart pounded as the man pulled out a firearm and pointed it at her chest. She panicked, fought back, then made a split-second decision. She threw herself from the moving van. Bruised, terrified, but alive, she ran until she reached a nearby home, pounding on the door until someone let her in. She was safe, but the man and his van had disappeared again. Police rushed to the scene, and this time, they had a survivor willing to tell them everything. They pulled surveillance footage from nearby homes and businesses, and what they saw made their blood run cold. The vehicle captured on camera was a silver Chrysler Town and Country, the very same make and color as the van last seen circling behind the gas station the night Jessica vanished. This time, investigators narrowed the field. From more than 15,000 possible vans statewide, they were able to reduce the list to just 11. They showed the girl photos of the owners. She didn't hesitate. She pointed to one man. His name was Jeffrey Willis. With that identification, police moved fast. Search warrants were issued. His home was raided. His van was torn apart piece by piece. What they found inside was like a nightmare spilled into reality. Syringes pre-filled with insulin, handcuffs, rope, a ball gag, pills. Not random items, tools for control, domination, and fear. A carefully assembled kit for someone who had been planning exactly what to do with his victims. Then came the weapon, a .22 caliber firearm. Ballistics testing confirmed the chilling truth. This was the exact same gun used in the killing of Rebecca Bletch. The bullets matched, the shell casings matched, and one final detail sealed it all. The handgun's laser sight was missing its battery cover, the exact same part found outside Jessica's gas station 3 years earlier. But there was one problem. The serial number on the weapon had been deliberately filed off. Whoever owned this gun had no intention of being traced. Someone didn't want it traced, but investigators weren't ready to let the trail go cold. They dug deeper, and against all odds, they recovered the serial digits. What surfaced next was chilling. The very gun had been reported stolen by none other than a co-worker of Jeffrey Willis, a man who had once trusted him inside the same factory. The circle was tightening, and with each discovery, the picture of Jeffrey grew darker, but nothing could prepare detectives for what lay inside his home. His computer was a vault of depravity, files filled with disturbing content, women, underage victims, images and clips that painted a portrait of a predator who lived in shadows. Yet the most horrifying part wasn't the content itself. It was how he catalogued it. One folder stood out, its name stark and cold, VIX. Inside, subfolders whispered the truth, JLHRSB. To a stranger, those letters were meaningless. But to investigators, they were like knives to the chest. Jessica Lynn Heringa, Rebecca Sue Bletch. Inside were their photos, news clippings, entire case coverage. Like he was curating their pain, owning their existence even in their absence. And then, the password. A separate computer was locked, hidden behind a code. When it was finally cracked, officers froze in disbelief. The sequence read J4L27H13, Jessica's initials, the exact date she disappeared. There was no more doubt. Jeffrey Willis wasn't just a suspect. He was the monster they had been hunting. He was swiftly arrested, charged with Jessica's kidnapping and disappearance, charged with Rebecca's murder, charged with the attempted abduction of the teenage girl whose escape had torn his empire apart. But as the walls closed in, another shadow emerged. Because this wasn't just Jeffrey's story, it was about blood. Just 1 month later, another name surfaced, one that no one expected. his own cousin, Kevin Bloom, a Michigan prison guard who would soon find himself unraveling in an interrogation room. At first, Kevin's words cracked the case wide open. He claimed Jeffrey had once called him to a gathering. But when he arrived, it wasn't a party waiting for him. It was horror. Jessica, unconscious on the floor, injured, stripped of dignity, wrapped in a sheet. He claimed he saw her before she was buried in a place no one would ever find. But then, he recanted, said it wasn't true, tried to backtrack, but it was too late. His words had already detonated a bomb inside the investigation. Kevin was charged with lying to investigators, and under mounting pressure, his mask shattered. He broke, he pleaded guilty. And just like that, the question shifted again. If Jeffrey and Kevin were connected, how many secrets were still buried? How many names would never be known? The court sentenced him to time served. But that wasn't the end of his involvement. Far from it. Just when everyone thought the nightmare had reached its conclusion, new evidence surfaced like a ghost from the shadows. Another charge was filed, darker and heavier than the first. On November 27th, 2017, Kevin stood before the judge and pled no contest, not to a minor role, but to something far more chilling. He admitted he had helped his cousin Jeffrey dispose of Jessica's remains. That single admission transformed him from a bystander into an accessory after the fact. For that role, he was sentenced again to time served. But this time the court shackled him with 5 years of probation and ordered him to wear a GPS tracking device for at least a year, an electronic tether to remind him and everyone else of the horror he helped conceal. Meanwhile, the clock of justice ticked ominously on the other side of the courtroom. Jeffrey Willis had already been convicted for the brutal murder of Rebecca Bletch. He was condemned to life behind bars with no hope of release. And yet, even in that moment of judgment, he revealed the depth of his cruelty. As Rebecca's family poured their grief into trembling victim impact statements, Jeffrey turned his back. Then, with a smirk that made stomachs twist, he blew them a kiss before walking out, mocking their agony as if their pain was entertainment. A monster, unashamed. But Jessica's case still lingered in the air like a storm cloud. The man believed responsible was already caged, but the verdict that her family so desperately needed had not yet been delivered. In May 2018, 5 long years after Jessica Lynn Heringer vanished from that quiet former gas station, her case finally made it to trial. Years of silence have been broken only by fragments of evidence and one unshakable belief. Jeffrey Willis was the predator who had hunted her that night. Despite the haunting absence of a body, prosecutors unveiled a chilling narrative built on patterns too dark to ignore and digital footprints that screamed obsession. They revealed that Willis had visited the Exxon station more than 15 times before Jessica disappeared. He wasn't just a passerby. He was watching, waiting, stalking. On the night she vanished, Willis was supposed to be at work, but factory logs confirmed he never showed up. His phone records betrayed him, placing him near his grandfather's home, only minutes from the gas station, right around 11 p.m., the exact moment Jessica was last seen alive.